I'm just here to welcome you all back from lunch. I hope that you enjoyed your sandwiches. I hope you all ate your cookies. So we have a little post-lunch sugar high for this final panel, which is going to be a really good one. So trends in digital communication with, just 3 small shops you may or may not have heard of: Google, Twitter, and Facebook. They're kind of a big deal. And to moderate is Shannon, whose last name is Chatlos. Who's a rock star Republican media consultant. And she's going to help us learn what's happening and not happening. So everybody welcome Janet. Thanks.
So I was excited when I got asked to moderate this panel in particular, because if there's 3 platforms that I use a whole lot, it would be Google, Twitter, and Facebook. So I know the platforms really well. I know their strengths, and I would never call them weaknesses because every platform is used differently, but I know which platform does great things and which platform does good things and which platform knocks it out of the park. And each of them have different times when they are a must-do. So I guess I'll start by, I think everybody in the room is basically from the same kind of advertising and media background, but I wanted to start by thinking about the way I start every single media buy and what's going through my head. So the first thing when we start a campaign or we have a project, I'm thinking about, who am I trying to reach? And so when I'm looking at those 3 platforms, that's the first thing I'm thinking is, like, which one is going to help me reach those people? And then what message do I need to convey? And what do I want my audience to do? Am I just doing an education and persuasion campaign, or am I trying to get somebody to take an action? And then I'm trying to think about what creative is going to work best. And then I'm trying to think about what kind of budget do I need? If I want to do something special on Twitter, can I afford to buy the hashtag of the day? So what platforms am I going to be able to use to accomplish these goals? Can I spread the budget amongst multiple platforms? And then what metrics do I need to be able to show my client that we won the day or that we won the campaign? So sometimes that is the reason I use a certain platform, is because maybe I'll get a metric that's actually going to help me continue the campaign that one platform couldn't do. So that's what I will start with. So that's where with these questions that are coming from those questions. So I'm going to ask them questions based on strengths and weaknesses and what we should all be doing. I'll also say before we get started that I have a kind of a standing rule that there are no stupid questions in digital, because digital changes every single day. Mm-hmm. And if you're not meeting with all the different vendors on a regular basis, you do not know what's going on. So I try very hard to meet with any vendor at least once every 6 months. These guys I meet with much more frequently, because the platforms are changing so much versus an offering. But I'm a strong believer in that. No one is an expert in digital, because it changes too much. So if someone tells me they're an expert in digital, I'm like, no, you're not. So it's a hard vertical to stay current in. I would like to ask the panel to start with, there's so many different objectives given any kind of campaign. There's awareness, education, persuasion, acquisition, action. I feel like we're constantly trying to craft a creative to accomplish one of those goals, and usually you can't accomplish one of those goals with the same creative. So what would be your advice when you guys are launching a campaign? How do you help someone with what creative should they be using versus the metric, or versus the objective that they're how do you advise your campaigns on that matching objective and creative?
I can start. Sure. So I think it's really important for folks to not necessarily have online and offline objectives. I think it's important to have just your objectives and then figure out what's the proper platform, the proper product to accomplish that objective. And it does start oftentimes, like you said, with this question of, is my objective about acquisition? Am I trying to collect emails, donations, get people to sign a petition, make a phone call? Or is it persuasion? Is it how can I move the needle for any number of things, whether it's getting people to vote for a candidate or just be more aware of an issue?
Yeah, I mean, I would add for us, whether it's an engagement, which is what we would sort of coach A client is really the way that you want to focus. If you want to make a lot of noise, if you want to get a lot of buzz, if you want people to share it, using the engagement objective makes a lot of sense. Also in that instance, think about what like rich media you can use to help sort of put the actual message out there. So if you want someone to retweet something and you've got a really compelling photo that you can match with it, that allows you to give it that extra oomph. Clearly, when it comes to direct response or when you're trying to elicit, a donation, or if it's, an email address, we tell you have like very few clickable items in that tweet. You don't want to confuse the user by having 3 hashtags and also a photo to click on and also a link. Make it as easy and simple as possible so that that objective with the creative are going to map towards the goal that you have.
Yeah, on Facebook, we started with a ton of objectives, made it really complicated for people to decide what they wanted to do. We've done a lot of work in the interface to make it easier for people to choose the objective that actually aligns with the real world outcome that they're trying to achieve. So if you look in the interface now, it's divided between awareness, acquisition, and conversion. And then from there, you have things like reach, things like video views, lead ads, and then purchases. So, there's a bunch more than that. But basically, my advice to my clients whenever they're choosing an objective is to choose the objective that aligns with your real world objective, right? So, if you want, if you're trying to drive donations, then don't optimize towards post engagements. That isn't going to align. Our system is really smart and has a ton of data points, so it's going to optimize towards whatever objective that you're choosing to get you the best value at the lowest cost. And then on the creative piece of that, I just want to, I think there's a lot of considerations here, but I just want to touch on one that I think has really changed over the past year and a half, and that's video. Historically, we would not have recommended video for DR campaigns, so for advertising or lead acquisition campaigns. And now that has really changed. So, we're not saying that you should use the same type of video as you would for, a persuasion campaign. Not what I'm saying, but I am saying that, we can talk more about this later, but using a certain type of video that is short, that is looping, that is thumb stopping to get people to engage actually can work across different objectives.
And what about trying to reach audiences with success on each platform? And do you guys have recommendations on how to measure frequency across platform? So if I'm using all 3 of your platforms to reach one audience, is there a way for me to find out a frequency cross-platform? Is there something you guys would suggest?
There are some third-party vendors that do this, and on the Facebook side, we're not really anytime soon, but we are working on some measurement tools to accomplish that. But as of right now, it's kind of a third-party basis, unless.
Yeah, I think all of our platforms offer reach and frequency tools within the individual platforms, but unfortunately, I think your point is valid, though. You want to think about, we want to reach this subset of users, but do we want to reach them 5 times on each platform, or do we find out, where the overlap is and how we can be effective? And I don't think that there is an answer to that yet. Yeah. I would imagine, though, that seems like it's something that could be coming over the next few years, because clearly budgets are limited, so you want to make sure you're hitting people. But I would add, there is something to be said about the mindset of the platforms being very different. So if you think about hitting somebody on Facebook at one point of the day and then maybe hitting somebody at Google at another, they might be in a very different mode. We say a lot, like Twitter is a great place for discovery mindset. You don't necessarily follow your friends, you follow things that you're interested in, articles, news sources. So when you're scrolling through, you're open-minded. You want to find new content, new interesting things. Whereas maybe somewhere else you weren't in that mindset. So in some senses, there is value to perhaps reaching that same user on multiple different platforms and just thinking about how to do that in unique ways so that it isn't the exact same message at the same time.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's really tough to look at each platform because they have different standards for viewability, what constitutes a video view, so it's difficult to necessarily compare all of them in that regard. Yeah. So that's why I think it's really important to try to make your metrics oriented around your goals, whether it's email signups or donations, because that's something that's more objective across all the platforms.
Yep, not apples to apples.
Mm-hmm. If there was one ad unit or one tactic on your platform that you would say every single campaign advocacy group, this should be in the mix, which one would it be?
It would be making video for mobile newsfeed.
I would say our conversational ad units, and I actually have a photo. I don't know if we have the slide, but if you're able to switch to it, I can show you this one.
That one?
Yeah, if you just go back. Yeah, so I think this is a really cool unit. Shannon sort of referenced, we do have something called the Promoted Trend, which is the national buy on Twitter. It's exclusive to one advertiser per day. And as you can see on the left, it's the top hashtag that sits there for 24 hours. This is an example from Trump's PAC last weekend, America First Policies. They bought that Promoted Trend and used hashtag HellerVoteYes, and they were using it to get a lot of attention.
And hella yes.
Yeah, and say, like, Dean Heller, you got to say, vote yes to repeal this. But what's cool about it is when you click on it, it takes you to the ad that's associated with it. And this is a conversational video ad. So in this case, or a conversational ad, period, what you do is you can use the text of a tweet like you normally would. But you notice that there's that call to action button, which says tweet hashtag HellerVoteYes. You can actually have up to 4 hashtags that you can choose. And in this case, what's cool is when the user clicks on it, it pre-populates a tweet that you've already created for them and also shares the video. So in this case, they actually pre-populated a tweet that named all of the staffers in Heller's office by @handle, and also included it made a lot of noise. It was like advocacy 101 that you want to see, where you're like pissing people off and you're getting in their face and you're really causing attention. But like, this is what you need. And I should just add that it was cool that they put these two things together, but the conversational video or conversational ad unit is available to everybody and can be used as just a regular Twitter ad. It doesn't have to be paired with the trend.
It's super cool.
I can say, as a former Hill staffer, the prospect of being called out on Twitter like that is frightening.
Yeah. I felt bad for them, but I also was sort of like, this is a great ad.
Yeah.
I would say in terms of Google and YouTube, the must-buy product would be TrueView ads. So those are the ads that are skippable after 5 seconds. The reason I like them is they're really a highly engaged video format because it is skippable. So people that are watching it are truly sort of a qualified video viewer lead in many ways. And the way we count views is such that if the ad is less than 30 seconds, for you to pay for that video view, you have to people have to watch the complete ad. If it's more than 30 seconds, you have to watch at least 30 seconds of that ad. So you're really getting truly the value for your money. And again, it's the highly engaged viewer that is opted into watching it. It's not just a forced view that's just like crammed down someone's throat.
And what do you think when you see a campaign launch and they don't have a search campaign? Like, are you guys at Google like, what's going on? What?
Yeah, I mean that's really like 101.
But I personally can't believe how many political campaigns launch without search up.
That happens? People launch without a search campaign?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, because you know why? Because it's so obvious that sometimes I think you forget.
Yeah.
It. So, like, and the other thing I'll say is that I try so hard to every single campaign that we launch to let these guys know, hey, I just launched something. Can you go in and check it? Make sure, did I miss something? Is there any low-hanging fruit that because you're going so fast. So it's so, not just these platforms, but all of the vendors that we use, they do such a good job saying like, hey, you missed something here, or this is another way you could optimize this better. So you guys have the teams to do it. So
yeah,
it's really good.
I completely agree. The way I think of search is essentially, it's powerful because it demonstrates intent. So if you're not there, then someone else is getting those clicks, those donations, that audience that you could have had.
Yeah.
And I would add, too, we encourage our clients to also launch search campaigns on Twitter. I mean, people are searching for the candidate's name,
right.
And if you're not owning that term, somebody else can. So absolutely, Google is king when it comes to search, but don't forget, a small budget can go a long way just to protect those terms on Twitter as well.
That's great. So switching to, do you guys have anything else to add to that? Okay. So switching to video specifically. I agree that video is king, and we're an integrated firm, so we believe very much that it should be a screen agnostic approach. If my boss Russ always says that if we need to hire a plane with a banner to fly around a lake, then that's what we're going to do. If that's where the people are going to be that day, he doesn't care where they are. So and I totally agree with that, and I love working at a firm where we're not fighting over budgets and we're able to do what's best for the client and get our message out there. Some it's sometimes you don't have a video budget. But let's focus on video for a little while because I do agree that it is so important. So video specifically, what things should, if you're doing a video and you're looking at your platforms, what is very specific to your platform that we need to know about running a video ad? Long format, short format, what works better? What ad units would you suggest? Just can you guys give us like a one-on-one on running video on your platforms?
Yeah, so internally at Facebook, we have a team called our marketing science team. They're focused on measurement. And then we have another team called our creative shop. So those teams have worked closely together to actually establish some concrete best practices. And this year, we've actually given some guidance on the length of video, which I think we've been hesitant to do in the past. So our best practices are to front load your content with thumb-stopping creative as well. So, you want to start with kind of your hero image, something that will draw the user in, but also at the same time, make sure that you have that branding up front as well. Most of the impact in a video is made between the first 3 and 7 seconds. So it's really important that you have the meat of your message in that period of time. Unlike a television ad where it kind of leads up to the punchline, you really kind of need to flip the script. And on the length piece of it, we're recommending that you keep your length of your video to 15 seconds or less. It can be longer, but you want to make sure your whole message is heard and understood within that first 15 seconds. The second is to design for sound off, but delight with sound on. That is the actual recommendation. And what that means is that I'm sure you've seen, in the news that we have been rolling out sound controls in Newsfeed. So as you scroll through Newsfeed, sound, if you have your sound on your device, and so on the hardware and software settings, you have the sound on, it'll, as you're scrolling through your feed, the video sound will fade in and fade out. However, if your sound's off, it won't play. You can easily, there's now like a little play button. You can just turn the sound off if you don't want it. On there. So because of that, there's still going to be a ton of video that is consumed without any sound. So because of that, you want to make sure that it makes sense without any sound at all. But delight with sound on, that just means, make sure that there's additive content, right? Reward the user for watching the video with sound. So, and whenever I do say design with sound off, what I mean specifically is at the minimum, use our automated captions. But really, we were having a conversation before the panel. If you have the ability to do some, really nice looking supers or text overlay that are designed in with the video, that is the premium. That's what you really want to be doing. If you can't do that, at least use automated captions. Please don't put a video on Facebook or I'm sure any of these with no text at all if it's not going to make sense without the text.
And as a best practice, Tiffany's our producer at Strategic Partners, she's right there, but she's actually added that into our production meeting. Is this ad going to be used online, and should we add captions to it and do it in the studio? Which is, it makes it. I mean, look, in Facebook's caption tool is awesome, but if you add that into the conversation, it's not a long time. It doesn't add a whole lot of cost to the production, and it can totally change the quality of the way it looks. So you can do some graphics and some things that look good. So I think it's a new best practice that should be implemented for sure. The one last best practice that I want to touch on is the way that you frame your story. So, we are now recommending that the premium is that you do vertical video for video ads on Facebook. If you're unable to do that because it wasn't shot in vertical, which many aren't. Oftentimes, you're a digital firm or is being handed the television asset, and you kind of just have to crop it and do with it what you can. So it's not always possible, right? So the premium is to shoot in vertical and use that asset. If you are unable to do that, then try and film in a way where it's easy to crop to a square at least. And the reason that's the recommendation is because I think it's about 93% of our users are accessing Facebook on their mobile device. 93%.
So all of your creative should be made with a truly mobile first mindset. So if you think about the way that you're consuming content, it's going to be bigger, right? It's just going to be bigger on the screen. It's going to be more prominent. It's going to have less distractions around it in a newsfeed environment. You're really getting more bang for your buck if you design these assets. And then it's also backed up by data that these vertical ads are outperforming Square and horizontal, and that Square does do better than horizontal. So those are
Do you guys have a metric with that? Like how much better?
So I don't have great metrics on it that are public at this time, but the Creative Shop and the marketing science team ran some tests with some brands, and I can also, there's other case studies on the website about this, but 7 out of 10 of the lift studies that they ran, the vertical outperformed the other assets. So.
Yeah, it would be so nice to be able to justify the additional production budget with a metric behind it, because it is going to, it's going to blow production people's minds that they have to shoot.
Yeah, and I think it was something like a 6-point average increase in ad recall with the vertical. I
mean, I'm in total agreement, and when we can do it, we do it. But
Yeah, and there's also on the Facebook for Business website under the success stories, there's a ton of case studies on that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Cool.
So those are the 3 best practices that I would say. And then, sorry, one other thing I wanted to say, you were talking about, it's not always in the budget to use video. So whenever we talk about video, we're not always talking about this high production stuff. Sometimes it can just be a cinemagraph or a GIF that you're using as a video. All videos that are under 30 seconds on Facebook loop. So it creates a longer video, right? So there are lots of apps that you can use to create a cinemagraph on your phone or create GIFs really easily in Photoshop. So just adding a little bit of movement gets the user to stop and engage.
Great. That's very helpful for me too. Video is exploding on Twitter. We have a few different things that on the promoted side that you can do. One is we have pre-roll video, which works similarly to what you're used to on Google. And in that instance, that's something we recommend that you do if, again, you're focused more so on aligning with brand safe content, going in front of a piece of content that somebody is trying to get to. So it's really about content and audience. In addition to that, we have regular promoted video, which allows you to just upload the video and then target users with that ad directly. That's going to be much more specifically about who exactly you want to reach with that ad. In addition, you've probably seen a lot about our live streaming on Twitter. That's a huge focus for us. So we have been doing everything from a lot of the sports events and a lot of the media and entertainment events. But in addition to that, we were live streaming the joint session. We live stream the DNC, the RNC. We actually sell one-to-one packages where advertisers have the ability to buy mid-roll in-stream live during those events as well. Those are more costly partnerships, as you can imagine, but still another way in a lot of senses that traditional TV buyers can think about moving TV onto Twitter, and knowing that really strong relationship between Twitter and TV, it's a really good opportunity to be able to think about a more affordable way to take a TV spot and put it in stream during a live event on Twitter. I think the best practices are really similar. We've done a lot of studies, and what we found is that the first 3 seconds are the most important. So within those first 3 seconds, you've got to have your hook. But in addition to that, we found that videos that have a human face in the first 3 seconds generally get better engagement. So something to just keep in mind. I think it's just the idea that you see a human and you have that interaction or that moment where someone registers with you. So that's something to keep in mind as you're thinking about creative. In addition to that, just making sure that you're running that objective in the video views objective. You're trying to get it out there and get people to really engage right then and there, having compelling text to go with it. I think that video has really changed the game for advertising on Twitter. There were a lot of years where people said there's only 140 characters, I can only say so much. But the video embedded in the tweet allows you to actually say a lot. So those are just sort of some of the top of my head as it results to video.
So a lot of these best practices are the same across platforms. I kind of want to focus in though on something that's been brought up, which is the issue of people come to us a lot and ask, is it better to have shorter form, longer form video? And I think depending on the issue, depending on what we're talking about, if it's more complex, you may need just more time in a longer form video to really convey that. But sometimes if you have just a more simple thought you're trying to convey, that can work out well as well. And so what we tell people to do is test your videos. Try a longer form, a shorter form, see which one works best. We have a tool called BrandLifts, which will let you essentially run an experiment where you are serving media to a group of people, and BrandLifts free on top of that media spend, and you're able to see that test group versus control group, which did the creative lift your brand in terms of awareness, ad recall, favorability, or intent to vote. So you could run one of these and look at does the shorter form perform better than longer form. A couple of slides related to our shorter form format that's been really hot lately. It's called bumper ads. So these, one more before that, please. Thank you. So there's 6-second video creative. Kind of like Audrey mentioned for Facebook, Google, YouTube is highly mobile these days. Most of our searches are on mobile. Most YouTube views are on mobile as well. So people are kind of gravitating towards that shorter form content that's very snackable. So bumper ads are 6 seconds. They're highly viewable because they're hard to skip. They're so fast. And if you go one slide ahead, we're seeing people use them in a lot of exciting ways. We're seeing people use them to announce their candidacy because, again, they're really cheap at about a penny a view, but they're a great way to get a great reach really, really quickly. So if you're announcing your name as a candidate, it's a great way to get penetration quickly. Remarketing, if you want to run a longer form video and then hit people with a shorter message thereafter with a remarketing campaign. And what we saw a lot last year, and we're seeing a lot, I think we will see this year and next, is seeing them get out the vote. So it's a really simple action to say, I'm so-and-so, vote for me today, vote for me on Tuesday. I'm having surrogates film these videos, and we're seeing folks do not just take a longer video and cut it down to 6 seconds, or see like a direct-to-camera. We even saw with the Bernie Sanders campaign, they made bumper ads specifically for YouTube that ran before New Hampshire and Iowa, just to be able to take that really quick action, informing them that this was the day of the caucus, the primary, so go out and vote and feel the burn in that case.
So you brought up AdLift, and I think what completion rates was kind of like the video metric in 14, and then viewability was in 16. I think AdLift and recall is going to be what people are kind of focused on in 18. I think. So, what is that available in your tools? How many impressions do you have to run in order to have something impactful, to have that really be a metric that you can look at? And if you can't do an ad lift or recall study, what metric would you say is something maybe unique to your platform? Like I know Facebook has relevancy score. Like what is the metric that you would say, like, take a look at this metric because it could actually give you some great information too?
Yeah, so on Facebook, we also do have a brand lift solution. I think the minimums are a little bit higher than Google's, so it's not always an option. But when it is, it's definitely a great option. It's very similar to the setup that Steve was describing for Google. In the platform itself, in Ads Manager, we give you a ton of great metrics back. The one that Shannon mentions, interesting relevancy score. I think that though in politics, that's not necessarily something you need to totally rely on. Relevancy score looks at, it's looking at the number of X outs, and so I think that's not, fair in politics. A lot of times our content is polarizing because it's politics. So I think things that I would look at. The brand awareness objective is really interesting. It gives you estimated lift in ad recall and estimated lift in impressions, which is interesting. And there's going to be some new metrics there that are being launched, so look for that. But we're definitely looking for ways to scale our measurement solutions, I think, to more advertisers, because like you said, that definitely is the way it's going. We, are urging advertisers to look at other things other than just than clicks and completion. So definitely looking for ways to scale those solutions more.
Yeah, we also offer brand lift studies, ad recall studies, but the minimums are high. So I think generally speaking, they won't work for, House or Senate races or things of that nature. I think the biggest thing that we're focused on, we're trying to work a lot on, getting more measurement tools, viewability. I think we would say, think about the viewability standards and look at those in the dashboard. So for video, for example, you can actually choose. So our standard is 3 seconds with 100% viewability or in screen. But you can choose to also do the MRC definition, which is 2 seconds, 50% on screen. So there's options there that you can sort of look between. So I would just look at those results differently, understanding the quality is going to be different there. But I think you're right. I think that this is an area that's absolutely a big focus. And I think that all of us are trying to figure out, the platforms are trying to figure out what's the best way to deliver that information.
Yeah, so in terms of brand lift, there's not a minimum per se. I mean, it's really just, you need to have enough impressions served so that you have enough views, so you have enough surveys served to people to get about 8,000 surveys completed. So when people can't, spend enough to complete a brand lift, we might look at other heuristics like maybe view-through rates to get a sense of how engaging was this content. Maybe in that case, look at different subsets within the group to understand did this perform better with men or women or among a certain age group.
And so interesting, and I'll just share one anecdotal. So we did a brand lift study on one of our Isaacson ads with you guys, and we moved, the ad was definitely a millennial women-focused ad. It was an ad called Kate, if you haven't seen it, and it's this woman went over to Africa. She was a volunteer at the Peace Corps. One in the village that she was working, a man was raping some of the young women. She turned him in. She was murdered for it. Senator Isaacson passed legislation to protect Peace Corps volunteers and other volunteers. Really compelling ad. You can't even watch without crying, I don't think. And then, but the cool thing is we thought we were going to be targeting millennial women. And through the AdLift study, one of the things that we learned it on Facebook too, actually, but one of the things that we learned through the AdLift study was, in particular, we were persuading 19 to 24-year-old males. We learned different things in Facebook, but on YouTube, we learned that. And we were like, what? Like that, but that wasn't really, so and the important thing is, it's what we learned in Facebook and what we learned in Google, we adjusted our TV buy from. Because we were like, wait, this is a really great ad that was we should be thinking about other. So that the AdLift studies and the metrics that we learn, I think it's so great for it to be able to inform other parts of your buy. So I know sometimes I feel like as the media buyer or the person that, it's not all about making sure our clients know we're doing a good job. It's also making sure that we're optimizing our campaign throughout the different mediums that we're using. So that's so cool to kind of dig back there in the metrics. So that's one of the reasons I was asking that question.
I would say too. I mean, and that ad was one of the best ads of the cycle. It's something that we've shown a lot of folks as kind of the best of reel. But I think that's a great example of what we've seen through all this testing. Is oftentimes our intuition, my own intuition, is wrong, and the data doing this testing can help us figure out which group does it actually resonate with the most.
Right, I agree. So we're talking about data a little bit. So let's focus on data for a second. And I promise to leave plenty of time for questions. Let's talk about first-party data and cookies. And Matthew Dubois and I were having a great conversation about this earlier today. But moving away from cookie targeting is cookie targeting. It's as good as it is. Can we talk about data a little bit and cookie targeting and IP targeting and first-party data that's in Facebook and Twitter, which is unbelievable, and then I'm scared to think about how much data Google has on everyone. It blows my mind. But tell me what you think. Should I still be uploading i360 and data trust data? Should I did a lot of testing with it last cycle. Sometimes it was great. Sometimes in Facebook, your data was way better and performed better than even the voter file. So what did we learn last cycle? What are your thoughts on data moving forward? What kind of targeting should we really be doing to move the needle?
I'll speak to first party, like the data files. So last summer we launched an update called Advanced Matching. Maybe that was 2 summers ago now. I think it was last summer. Anyways, you can use to onboard a data file, you used to have to go through a third-party vendor, but now you can do it directly in the custom audiences interface, and you can match on multiple keys like first name, last name, email address, multiple phone numbers, date of birth, so on and so forth. So once this change was made, our match rates went from below 50% consistently to above 80% consistently. So as far as making the decision between using that kind of data and using the data that's in our interface, I think it completely depends on what the objective is. So if you have a robust, awesome, huge donation file and you have all those different fields and your objective is to raise money, you should upload that file and you should ask those people for money, 100%. If your goal is to reach a broader set of people, then you should use our ideological clusters, which were made internally based on modeling, and that are really great, and people have seen a ton of success with those. And those are really broad, and they're collectively exhaustive, so they cover almost everyone that we have enough signals for, and they're mutually exclusive, so there's no overlap between them, and there's 5 of those, and they're really excellent. So I think it just depends on what your objective is, but if you have great first-party data, then you should upload it in custom audiences and use it. But don't over micro-target. Definitely, people ask me, why am I not getting any delivery? I'm like, well, because you're targeting 500 people. So I'm definitely, rely on us and our targeting solutions whenever you don't have good first-party data.
Yeah, I mean, I have a lot of strong feelings about this, but I think, tailored audiences on Twitter is clearly an option. You can upload the list, you can match, but people have to keep in mind that we don't have the information about users that Facebook and Google do. You can be an anonymous user if you choose to be. And so as a result, the match rates are going to be low, not to mention that you have one email address, if you're using email, that's associated with your Twitter account, which in a lot of cases is people's personal email addresses and not their work email addresses. So I think that generally speaking, absolutely we would tell you every time, tailored audiences should never be the only solution or the only type of targeting that you're using for a campaign. It's narrow, and similar to that, not only will they upload a list, then they'll put in 4 zip codes, and then they'll say we only reach people who have green dogs, and then you're like, great, you can reach one user. I think the micro-targeting trend is problematic for a lot of reasons, but why I also think it's hugely problematic on a platform like Twitter is why Twitter is so valuable is because it's where people are having these incredible conversations about topics, and those are such strong signals that somebody cares. So if you're only using a list, but you're not actually targeting people that are using the hashtag or that are responding to tweets that have the term, you're missing the conversational piece, which is a huge part of what Twitter is and what the value is. We also, I would say, our first-party data is quite good. I mean, we know a lot about users just from who they're following, what they're tweeting about. In addition to that, we obviously work with, the third parties like the Datalogics, the Axioms of the world that upload, consumer behaviors as well that we can then map on top of the first party data. So, my recommendation would be if all you have is the list and that's all you can do, make sure you're doing lookalikes on top of it, make sure you're thinking about other things that you can target. And then lastly, another sort of great opportunity is there are a lot of third parties out there that can comb through the API and use a lot of your directives. So for example, we want to reach people who have tweeted this term in the last 3 months that follow this account but don't follow this account and that have this term in their bio. And they can spit back a list of 10,000 Twitter handles that you can then upload and target against. So I think that's worth exploring, and also keep in mind you can actually target direct Twitter handles through tailored audiences as well, so that's something else that you can do in addition to layering on additional targeting so it's not too narrow.
You just ruined every intern's summer.
I know, sorry.
Go find every Twitter handle for this precinct in Virginia.
Yeah.
So I completely agree with the perils of micro-targeting and over-targeting. We saw that time after time again last election cycle that didn't work for folks. To your point about cookies and kind of perspective on that, we're definitely at Google, YouTube moving away from cookie targeting. And a large part of that is because the media landscape has changed dramatically. So you look at about 10 years ago on YouTube, most of our viewers were watching on desktop devices, and now a majority is actually on mobile devices. And the fastest growing device is in fact your TV. So people that are watching YouTube through a device connected to your TV. So in that sort of cross-device environment, cookie targeting just doesn't work as well as it once did. So we're moving towards other ways of using our own data, because we do have a lot of it, to help people target their ads accordingly. So in the past, we didn't use search data to inform our targeting for YouTube, but that's actually changed. So we're now pulling in those signals. That's made a lot of our affinities you can target much stronger and given them more scale. We have new affinities, like we can target likely voters that either lean left or right or are swing. And then we're also doing a lot more to let you bring your first-party data to Google YouTube through our customer match product. So in the past and currently, you can do that by uploading email addresses. It's actually expanding to include uploading physical addresses and phone numbers. And that should be built out hopefully by next year. It's being literally built out like right now, which is very, very exciting for targeting those lists. And then further using that, we can create a similar audience based off of that, figure out which of those affinities index most highly with your audience, and then help you build out the right sized audience from there.
Cool. The data thing is just mind blowing. And Twitter, you guys have done an awesome job. Like I think it's almost impossible to know what all the data options are on every single platform. So again, like taking the time to ask, like this is what I'm doing. What data sources should I go looking for so that I can be successful on your platform? Because data's out there. And spending the time to go buy it or find it is worth it. So you guys do a good job advising on that. Can you tell that I drive these people crazy calling them all the time? So if there was one thing that we would need to leave here today knowing that this is the latest and greatest thing on your platform, well, two things. What is it? And what does it do? And how do we do a better job? How do we do a better job keeping up with what you guys are innovating? Because I get the Think thing, I get the newsletter thing you guys send out. So what can we do better so that we're staying very current on the digital trends?
Cool. On the first question, I'm going to sound like a broken record. You should make mobile optimized video following our best practices. And on the second thing, we actually have an incredible external training resource called Blueprint. And it's actually what salespeople are trained on internally. So it's awesome. It covers all of our products. It's updated really frequently. It's mixed with video modules and text modules, and you can take quizzes. If you wanted to get certified, you could do that. It's not a requirement to go through it. It's awesome. And then you should also sign up for all of our marketing letters. That's oftentimes like whenever I just was on vacation for 3 weeks and I got back in, I had to read through all those marketing newsletters to get up to speed on what's going on. So truly the resources that we give externally are nearly as up to date as what I'm receiving internally. There's not much that you're missing if you just rely on our newsletters and on Blueprint.
So newest thing from us is I talked a little bit about live, and so we do live stream a lot of events, but in addition to that, we just had our new fronts where we talked about original content that's now actually being live streamed on Twitter. So we have TV shows that are happening on Twitter only now. We have partnerships with Bloomberg. We have partnerships with BuzzFeed. And like, for example, with Bloomberg, every morning we have a news show that talks about finance and news, and it's targeted, for millennials. And so our advertisers can actually buy streaming ads within those original content series that are on Twitter. So I think you're going to see more and more of original content, things happening on the platform. I think when it comes to how to stay up to date, similar to Audrey, like we'll get emails sometimes from clients that are like, why didn't you tell me about this? And we'll be like, because I didn't know. Or like, I barely even saw it in my email. Like things do roll out incredibly fast. It's so hard to keep up. We do have something called Flight School that anybody can do. It actually takes you through the whole process of how to set up Twitter ads, get sort of certifications in different areas on advertising on the platform. So that's something. We have a marketing blog that you can check pretty regularly, and also you can just bother our team and ask us if there's something that typically we'll have a one-pager that we can share with you.
Latest product, I would say, are TrueView for Action products. So basically turning YouTube videos on TrueView into more a DR platform. So it lets you customize your call to action. I saw some really cool examples the other day for Geico that customized the call to action being get a quote, which works really well to sort of make something more specialized to your type of business. Greatest though, totally all about bumper ads. I think that's the way of the future. Being mobile, being so snackable. Again, you can run brand lists on those, and we've seen all these great uses of them already. I can't wait to see what we see going forward. And then in terms of how to stay on top of all the things that are coming out of Google and YouTube, again, like you mentioned, we have a lot of email newsletters, but also have a lot of YouTube channels that have information about products, kind of how to webinar videos. Sometimes that can be video can be a powerful format, as we all know, as being around the creative industry. So, if you don't want to read the newsletter or the case study, maybe watch the YouTube video about the product and learn that way.
There's also something I discovered recently that I'll share with the group, and that is AdExchanger has a podcast. Has anyone discovered this yet? So it's awesome. So it's much more brand driven, but everything that they talk about is basically stuff that we can use in political and advocacy and public affairs. So look up Ad Exchanger podcast if you're a commuter, which I bet you all of us are. It's a really great way to stay current on some different things. And then, yeah, I mean, some of the stuff, it's not all applicable, but it's good stuff. And obviously some of it has some budget limits too. So I don't have any other questions, but does anybody have questions?
Can you, you've all done a good job tracking clicks to bricks, I think. Are you doing anything a little more focused on ads to the polls? I mean, have you done any straight line testing to show attribution there?
So we have a product called Offline Conversions, and you can, I know Data Trust has kind of dug into this product a bunch. So I've had a couple clients, and FP1 actually published a blog on this recently. So what they're doing is using our offline conversions product, setting up an offline conversion set is what it's called, and tying it to their ad campaigns. And then they run their ads. You have to do this in advance. You cannot do it retrospectively. So they run their ads, and then they get that data, in this case from Data Trust, and then they import that data, and then you can see so obviously you don't know who voted for who, right? But you can see who turned out at the polls, and not who specifically, right? But who, in the same way that an online conversion would be attributed to your ad, that's what you can now do with the offline conversions product. So it's really interesting. I think it's just the beginning of that kind of thing, but FP1 does have a blog post on it if y'all wanted to check that out.
We don't have anything specific that you as a user can see or do. There have been a lot of discussions, and there have been a lot of really interesting third-party studies that looked at events like Brexit and the last election, and have actually analyzed organic tweets on Twitter. Like, could we have figured this out in advance if we paid attention to the conversation on the platform and how people were talking about it? And there were some studies, and I can't remember the research firm, but I can look into it, who basically said that they were not surprised that Brexit happened based on the conversation that was happening on Twitter, and some professors that had looked at that. So I think that, while it doesn't answer your question, could be a really interesting thing moving forward. Like, if we know that, and if professors and research institutions were to work with us and think about that in the future, perhaps that could be a new form of polling that could be more accurate than maybe the traditional sources that have not done so well for us in the last cycle.
Yeah, I would say to your point, yeah, we definitely have done a lot of tracking for retailers. I'm looking at collecting you say clicks to bricks. I haven't seen that done in terms of Google YouTube for elections. It's something that you can technically do if you can do that for a retail store. But in all honesty, because of data privacy is taken really seriously at Google, we haven't done that. But in terms of measuring public opinion, it's something I've seen that's been really exciting is seeing what Google's doing in terms of surveys and online survey research, market research with Google surveys, and being able to poll really quickly, really accurately. The method's been validated by some top pollsters and Pew and others. So, in terms of using that to maybe better understand public opinion and how ads are moving the needle and getting people to actually turn out and vote, I think maybe some opportunities using that tool for someone to do that.
I'm just wondering, Jen, if you could tell us what the targeting for the Heller vote yes. Like, if you're going to go that big, are you targeting?
Tell her. Okay.
I was actually wondering, like, are you guys? So I know
That's
Facebook
not
has
us,
partisan guider team. So like, Shannon and I do the same thing for different sides of the aisle. But are you like? Does Google have a Republican person and a Democratic person as well? Yeah. Okay. Anyway, the targeting. I'm just wondering, does that go to everybody or like influence makers?
Yeah. So it's a really good question. So the promoted trend is national only. So they chose in that instance, they wanted to go big. So like, that's not something that's for everybody. That is that top placement hashtag for the whole day. So that is like, we want to go big, we want to make noise, we want it to be national. And that doesn't work for everybody, clearly. But, right, there's got to be money. But that being said, if, the most sort of targeting that is used when you do want to reach that influential Washington audience, we traditionally help those teams with everything from pulling together the Twitter handles of every staffer, every press outlet in Washington, every reporter, and do lookalikes on top of that, and then use keyword targeting around specific hashtags and things along those lines to marry it all together. And that would be something we would help you with. But yeah, when it came to this instance, it was just we want everyone to see it.
And like less voter persuasion, obviously. That was just for headlines.
It was like, we're going to make a ton of noise. And, anecdotally, they got like over 20,000 people to tweet at these staffers. And so you can imagine their poor phones that day. I kept like wanting the anecdote of like, it couldn't stop ringing. It just fell off the table, but we haven't heard that yet. But I think it was pretty intense.
And one thing that Twitter said the other day, and I think this is cool, so they do sell it at a premium, but if you call them the day before and they haven't sold it,
Yeah, it's like cheap early.
yeah, so I like that because you know what, you can because I like that because if you had an association or someone that maybe it would be a great idea, but it is expensive, and you could just say, look, we're going to just keep a little piece, and we're going to call Twitter every day and see if maybe we can do this.
Clearinghouse,
Yeah. So
And it happens.
It happens.
Like, it happens because, while the trend gets booked up really far in advance, brands typically buy it. And guess what? Movies get moved. Launches of car dates get changed. And so they, at the last minute, have to move those dates. And then all of a sudden, tomorrow's is available. And what traditionally costs $200,000 a day could be $75,000. So that's a big difference.
Yeah.
Just a
Just
cool
a 75K. Got it
$75K.
sitting
Just give us a
around.
call.
Just sitting around.
We have a similar product with YouTube, the YouTube masthead, that you've probably seen a lot of, like movie releases or auto companies especially. We saw a couple of folks in the elections space last year buy up the masthead. It's that prime real estate on desktop, youtube.com, or on the app. We can similarly target it nationally and get make a big impact by creating a splash.
It's cool.
So to Facebook, I hear your best practices are vertical video. I hear it.
We can. You wanna flip to it?
Yes.
Yeah, let's do that.
I was scrolling through. I found squares, but
Yeah, I have an example from the
Sorry, I
RNC.
couldn't have co-opted your question.
Oh wait, yeah, that was it. Go back. Yep. It'll just click and it should play.
Oh.
It was playing.
Back one more, maybe.
Yeah, go back
Let
one
me
more.
go back and then forward again.
There you go. So this is vertical video. It takes up the entire, viewport, as we call it. This one is not one that was high production, obviously. It's just made probably by their graphics person. Yeah. Really simple. That's a still image in the background from the, polling places. This is just a recent example. The Trump campaign does a ton of this. So it takes up a lot of space. It garners more attention, but yeah.
So I have a hack on that though. So Canvas ads have the same type of vertical, and you can put your horizontal video in there, and while you don't get the same all video, all screen, the Canvas ad is so cool that it takes up the whole.
Yeah, let's click. I have a couple of Canvas too.
And we've gotten really, really good engagement rates on Canvas.
So Canvas is a post-click experience, so you can think of it as using it in lieu of a microsite. Here's an example that the Cruz campaign did that I love. They hacked a store with this because they were launching they were announcing their VP candidate. They didn't have time to build a store. And so they used Canvas to build a really, really simple store. This one's from the Bernie campaign. It's How to Caucus, which turns out is kind of complicated. So they just built, I think, just click. It should just, or space bar. There we go.
Can we find those somewhere?
Not the Cruz one, but this one is in articles and stuff, this Bernie Sanders one. And I think
it's a horizontal ad, but like.
So no.
Exactly what I'm saying. Yeah.
So, but no, I don't want to confuse the two. So it's important, the feed ad itself, we're also not recommending that itself is vertical or square.
But at least it takes up the whole screen.
Right, but we would recommend if you don't have a strong
Stop going against Facebook.
if you don't have a strong feed ad, then no one's going to open your beautiful canvas and see it anyways. So it's really important that your feed ad itself follows those best practices, or else no one's going to get to this awesome immersive experience.
I guess you could just shoot everything 4K from way far away and then crop it.
Did we get to the rest of your question?
That's my question, is how do we do that? So when we all went SD to HD, there was this time where
Yeah,
we had...
I'm not going to be your technical
Okay.
girl
So
on any of that.
When we originally on TV went from square to
Maybe.
rectangle, there was a phase called anamorphic where we squished the sides. Is Facebook looking into do that in reverse, so we could take our vertical ads and like sort of show like maybe if you click more you could see the sides, and so it could be vertical and then you could click and go full screen.
A rectangle and put it in your.
Right. If you wanted to see the other half of this person's face, click here. See the full ad.
I told
I
you
do
this
not-
was going to blow all the production
Yeah.
people's minds.
I don't know that is on our roadmap. I have not heard of anything that
Could you
indicates
talk
that.
to someone about that?
I guess, yeah, can you input a horizontal ad into a vertical, basically frame?
Um,
You know what I mean?
No, but there is something cool. I'm not sure if it works for video, but on Canvas there's something called tilt to pan, and it's like it goes like this. So I don't know that it works for video. I'd have to look into that. But yeah, exactly, like a 360 view thing. Yeah, so I guess like maybe the 360 video would solve that, right? It would have to be shot differently, but you know, with 360 you're seeing it, and then you scroll. It'd be a little different. You could probably hack that together though. But again, I don't know the technical requirements on the shooting and production end. Sorry.
Thank you, though.
So, with as much of the audience that you have, respectfully, there's a tremendous responsibility that comes with that. And if not a lot of time now left, but can you touch on a little bit on content and safe, well-lit content and what you feel you as publishers have the responsibility for ensuring that this great creative runs in safe and well-lit content?
I think you're kind of referring to community operations community like standards and that kind of stuff, like brand safety, or what exactly?
Yeah, with much of the coverage of late around, for lack of a better term, fake news, how are your companies, how are your teams in DC working on ensuring that these investments are made and
The ads are running.
in areas that are safe and well lit and effective for the investments that are being made in these ads?
Yeah. Do you want to go ahead?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I mean, I think brand safety is one of the top things that we've heard a lot about over the last few months, and it's been a big priority. We've worked with a lot of third-party sort of measurement and viewability groups like Moat and other elements to make sure that like 99% of ads are seen by humans versus bots, things along those lines, because we know that obviously if you're paying to put those ads there, you want to make sure that they're being seen by the right people. In addition to that, I would say, when it comes to products like pre-roll, for example, we have spent a lot of time making sure that the only publishers that are putting content there are ones that are brand safe, pre-approved. So there is no user-generated content that your pre-roll could go in front of. It's something that we own and we will make sure is safe. That being said, if there is concern, promoted video is your best option because it won't run in front of anything. It will just sort of be there. And then lastly, I would say that's why verification is so important on Twitter. It's something we take really seriously. We want to make sure that if you're seeing something, you know that that is the official news source, the real one, versus maybe somebody else who's mocking that or is a parody account. We do allow for parody accounts, but we require that you say that in the bio. And then lastly, I would say it's not perfect, but we do rely on users to self-police a lot. One of the things that's really amazing about Twitter is because journalists live and breathe on our platform, you don't really get away with much. So if somebody tweets something and it's wrong, everybody will correct it immediately, which really helps. But also we allow for users to report things as being incorrect or spam or things along those lines. So that absolutely is something we encourage you to do if you see something that's not what it should be.
Yeah, I'd say the brand suitability discussion has been a really important one to have these past couple of months, and we're doing a lot at Google YouTube, not only working with third-party folks to sort of validate views and whatnot, but also we're doing a lot internally. And I think of sort of 3 Ps, better policies in place to flag content and figure out what's allowed, what's not allowed. We're improving our products to make sure that we can more easily flag content that is inappropriate or maybe not suitable for brands, and the third being people. That we have a lot of folks at Google and YouTube working on our products, and we have a lot more folks working on this issue specifically. And I think also we're working a lot more with our agencies to make sure they have the tools to give them more control into where their ads are being placed, and also more transparency into where their ads are actually being placed as well.
I think it's so important that upon any digital launch that you have the ability. We try to only work with vendors that have this ability to go in and look at the whitelist and look at the impressions run and hopefully look at the geo, because ad ops make mistakes. So, I mean, it happens. I've seen ads running out of geo, and not 500 ads, thousands of ads. You need to be able to go in and look at the platform. So I think transparency is huge.
On the false news piece, we've partnered with a few third-party fact checkers. We've made it easier. It's always been possible, but we made it easier for users to report something as untrue. And those now are also reviewed by those third-party fact checkers. I think there's a blog post on that. And then on the brand safety piece, most of your Facebook delivery is going to happen on Facebook newsfeed or on Instagram newsfeed, where it's, you yourself are curating what your newsfeed looks like. So it's not really a concern there. However, we do have the Audience Network, which is a network of different apps and websites where your video, if you have stayed opted into that, can run. We've had controls around that, but we're launching over the next few months even more controls over that, which I think is going to be really awesome for advertisers.
That's one area that I would mention when you're placing Facebook ads in particular. Be sure that you go through each of the placements and look at what you wrote and what the video looks like, because you create your ad and you need to go look and see what it looks like on each of those platforms.
Actually, I have an exciting update on this that happened this week. So previously, what Shannon's referring to is on the placements level, it automatically opts you into most placements that your creative is eligible for, which is usually most of them. You have to use the same creative for Facebook, for Instagram, for Audience Network. So for most people, I think that this isn't really a huge issue, but some advertisers want to have something specific for Instagram, want to have something specific for Facebook, and so on. So now we just this week, literally, we have we now allow you to have one video for Instagram and another video for Facebook, and we're going to be rolling out the ability to do that for all of our different placements, which is really exciting.
What about changing the text across?
I'm not sure on that. Again,
because let's say you have 3 lines for newsfeed.
I don't think that is that's an option now, but I think generally it should be shorter text anyways, so that it can fit, so that it's not cut off, especially on mobile. But why this is exciting, so you could always have your own, do an Instagram ad set, do a Facebook ad set, but why this is an exciting update is because it allows you to use placement optimization, which is great. It'll just reach everyone in your target audience wherever they're spending their time, but now you can tweak those creatives to make it maybe a little bit more sense on those platforms, to make it feel a little more native. So I'm really excited about that.
That's super cool. Anybody else? Well, thank you. You guys were awesome, and thank you for all you do to make all of us digital consultants better at our jobs.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you. So Shannon, Audrey, Jenna, Steve, thank you so much. When our viewers only give us 3 to 7 seconds, we really appreciate the extra time you spent with us today. Thanks to all of you. We look forward to seeing you at a future APC. Please give us your feedback. This is our first edition, so